Hello, my fellow YouTubers. This is Roy back again. That's my boy Vinny. He's a blue Doberman. He's going to be 6 in 7 days next week. Let's go ahead and talk about a little circuit I'm working on. I have a capacitor. It is a 500 farad, 2.7 volt capacitor. It's fully loaded. You can't discharge it 100% or very little. If you dead short it, doesn't discharge like a regular capacitor. Um, it's more like a battery in a sense where it holds a charge and it doesn't release all of its charge at one time. And we're gonna, based on that premise, we're gonna mess around a little bit. So what we have here is I got this capacitor. I have it coming out of the capacitor, positive and negative, and running over to this voltmeter that I made. I took this out of the machine a long time ago, a couple of years ago, and if you just put power to it, it pings it all the way. So I didn't know what to do with it, but finally I threw a resistor on there and I got it to not ping, but to go to the volts, and you change the resistance and get it into the area where it's supposed to be, and then you dial it in. So right now we are sitting at 3.5 volts. The max on these capacitors are 2.7, but there's certain tolerances on there, so 3.5 is not going to blow it up or make it do anything crazy. I have right now coming out of this capacitor going into an oscillator. These are cool little oscillators that you can buy them in eBay, 10 bucks, 11 bucks, 12 bucks. I forget what I paid. I got 2 of them. And it goes from 1 kilohertz, this set of pins here is 1 kilohertz to 33 kilohertz. Then 33 kilohertz to 330 kilohertz. Then the third pin is up to, I think, 300 megahertz. So it's got some speed about it. Also, I got it running the capacitor to the oscillator to the speaker. You can hear the speaker. And also on these capacitors, this one's a fine tune and this one's a frequency tune. So right now we got it all the way in, and it is buzzing right now at 1,000 kilohertz, 1 kilohertz. So this is 1,000 hertz. We're going to go ahead and start turning it up. I want you to listen. So you get the premise. Now I got it all the way up, and it's up to 330 megahertz, and I think beyond that you can't hear it. And right now it's getting low voltage going to it, so it's not putting a lot of power in here. So we'll try it with the transistor, and that'll allow me to pull volts from the battery. But it's pretty cool to be able to use capacitors in this way, and there's some exciting projects that I'm working on using these capacitors in wireless charging system. So we'll chat about that. If you guys want to leave your comments, please do. Also, if you guys want to pick up, this is a voltage regulator, pretty much with a digital display. And you can have up to 28 volts coming in, and you can tune down your voltage to what you want. So I charge these capacitors by dialing it down to 3.2, 3.5 volts. Let me see what else. Doing some work over here on my outside system, and you can see that I have wires strung, and we are checking different antennas I got up there. I got one that's a toroid with spikes sticking out. I got one that's aluminum little rods. That's more of a dipole. And then I have this iron that's just a half-inch thick by 3/4 inch thick by 4 feet, 5 feet long iron. And believe it or not, guys, I'm getting a lot more response from the iron. Also over here, I got a 3/4 inch copper shoved in the ground with a 1 foot long rebar in it, and I using that along with the iron, and I'm picking up about a volt point one, volt point two, and that's in natural medium. Like right now, there's barely no wind. Sky's a little gray, but there's not much here. But what I've been doing is experiments and studying what happens when the air is charged from a storm coming in. So I have great results with that. We'll talk about that in another video, but there's a difference in what I get in the voltmeter when storms get present, and it's because the ground is not just a positive, it's not just a negative, which predominantly at the surface we would think it's negative all the time, but it's not all the time. It's predominantly negative, the air's predominantly positive. When storms come in and you get turbulence from clouds and storms, it reverses it. It makes the air just enough negative shows up in the air as positive in the air. So the ground reacts off of that transition that's happening, and you will have a oscillating positive negative coming out of the ground, reacting to what is being collected um, in one of the antennas, because when the air is charged and it's unbalanced charge, a positive and a negative in the air, you could pick up either or based on what the ground is below it. So the ground is not only confused from being a negative at the surface, it's now having it being a positive because negative is showing up in the air, which mainly a positive does. So the great thing about it is that you could oscillate to that, and what you do is you turn the upper collector into the same energy that the ground is at that moment. And what will happen is the collector will collect the opposite charge. So there will be a sine wave basically going from that one of those antennas to the ground, and it'll be changing up and down because the ground will be changing according to the environment. So what I can say from my studies, guys, is that the ground is responding to the air change, the static difference in the clouds. So I just want to say, guys, it's great work, man. Hope you guys leave your comments. This is great, great, great work. This is to me. I get done work. Get done work. Worked all day, 9 hours today. And what do I do? Take a shower. First thing I do is grab a beer, and I'm in here back to work. Back and I'm keeping records. Um, Running a capacitor. It's crazy using a capacitor. So, real quick, I'll get off this phone. Pretty much, we're going to create a circuitry that comes from the apparatus out here into here. And there's going to be a sensor that I'm going to build that will notice the difference into a coil, at Leedskalnin style. And pretty much what we're going to do is take that coil, and I'm going to take pretty much Ed's ground pipe, put a coil inside of it, and it's going to detect the difference in the ground when the ground decides to change according to the clouds coming in and the environment, the temperature and all that changes. So the the coil will notice that there's an oscillation going instead of it being a steady ground, steady negative ground, it'll be a positive showing up. So it'll show up in that coil. That coil will let me know which in fact a little light will show up and then it will go ahead and start the circuitry to start oscillating up and down and it'll put a low voltage capacitance charge into the upper antenna. And by doing that, it's going to attract an enormous amount of energy back into the collector. All right, you guys, peace out.